So, Global All-Stars, am I right? Listen, I know everyone and their grandmother has talked to death on the internet and shared their opinions about how bad this season is. It's a flop, it's terrible, it's garbage, and you're probably wondering what more could a white twunk from rural Washington have to add to the conversation, and I'm sorry, but I have a lot of shit to say. I've got a ring light, I've got a ring light, an iPhone, a dream, and a can of cider, so strap in, mother. In December of 2022, World of Wonder, the parent company of RuPaul's Drag Race, announced a brand new franchise to be added into the canon, Global All-Stars. Drag queens from around the globe, 12 queens, 12 countries, each would get a chance to have a second or third chance at the crown, competing in a battle royale for the crown, a $200,000 cash prize, and global fame a la mode. And leading up to it, the hype was more than palpable. I mean, we'd get to see queens from franchises all around the world who have not gotten a ton of exposure compete in front of one of the biggest drag queens of all time, RuPaul Andre Charles. We'd get to see all brand new kinds of cast dynamics, different kinds of intersections of drag and culture. It would be fantastic. All these queens would be getting their flowers. It was going to be everything that the show had been building up towards since it first began all the way back in 2009. Like, this is everything we the fans have been waiting for, right? Right? So now that we're months out from the finale, I think we can all finally conclude that RuPaul's Drag Race Global All-Stars Season 1 is a season whomst is bad. Overproduced storylines, mistreatment of the cast from the fandom, lack of investment in anyone that isn't a Ru girl on the season. Like, there really was no end to the insanity. It was think piece after argument on social media, absolute pandemonium. We were all in shambles during this season. And when the dust was settled, the winner crowned, the season crawling to its pitiful close at the end of the 12th episode, the resounding response from fans and alumni of the show alike was... Hi, my name is Archie Merc. I use any and all pronouns, and I am a content creator on the internet, most known for my Twitch streaming that I do multiple times a week. Follow me at twitch.tv/thatarchiemerc. And I'm here because I have feelings. Because most people seem to want to forget this season and leave it in the gutter all the way back in 2024. But not me. I haven't stopped thinking about this ugly mother since it finished airing. So much so that it finally got me to rear my ugly head on the website that is youtube.gov.ca. Why is Global All-Stars? Shit, I don't know, but that's what we're setting out to do today. I want to take a long, hard look at her, take her apart sequin by sequin, to ask the question, not only how is it that a season that should have been a slam dunk ended up being such an epic failure, but why and how is it that this season that should have been the culmination of everything RuPaul has set out to do since the show first began ended up becoming one of the most disliked seasons in the history of the franchise. This is RuPaul's Drag Race Global All-Stars, a masterclass in how to fail literally everyone. First YouTube video, yeah? It's kind of a slay. Like and subscribe, bitch. I don't know how to do this. What? I'm gonna kick this whole like retrospective / analysis off with a bit of a recap of the season because number one, I believe if we want to have a nuanced conversation about this season and this piece of media, I believe it is most important that we are all on the same page about what happened and we refresh our memories and we are aware of the major beats of the season. And also, number two, especially because most of y'all didn't finish the season or watch it in the first place. Certainly didn't stop people from being the most annoying about it on the internet, though. So it's a good thing that I am here to spill the tea. Let's get this started, Diva. There's not enough alcohol in the world that's gonna get me through this goddamn season. Just to be on the same page here, the cast consists of mostly runner-ups or fan favorites. We have Athena Likis from Drag Race Belgium, Miranda Lebrau from Drag Race Brazil, Eva La Queen from Drag Race Philippines, Soa de Muse from Drag Race France, Galavaro from Drag Race Mexico, Pythia from Canada's Drag Race, Tessa Testicle from Drag Race Germany, Vanity Vane from Drag Race Sfadia, Nelania from Drag Race Italia, Queen Kong from Drag Race Down Under, Kitty Scott Claus from Drag Race UK, and Alyssa Edwards from RuPaul's Drag Race, the original US iteration, and Drag Race All-Stars. Each of them walk into, instead of the workroom and doing their little enter workroom, shift weight, catchphrase pose, they walk the runway doing their opening ceremony eleganza moment. The main judges consist of RuPaul, Michelle Visage, and Jamal Sims? Okay, why not? The judges ask each of the queens after they walk the runway a silly little question to get to know them and their sense of humor a bit better. And immediately we start seeing a rather big disparity between how the judges react to certain types of queens and humor, particularly queens from English-speaking franchises where they can appeal to their sensibilities a bit more. And the other half of the time it's just like kind of cringe and awkward. Half the time the judges are just like,
okay. Whatever that means.
After they walk their entrances, the cast of 12 is split into groups of 6, and each of them will go on 2 separate weeks for a non-elimination double premiere, The Talent Show, an All-Stars Classic. I personally don't have much of an issue with the first 2 episodes being non-elimination in general. I like to get to know these queens a bit better, especially for a franchise like Global All-Stars where a lot of the cast consists of queens from franchises that aren't well known or well watched in the United States or the UK or other English-speaking countries. It's nice that we get to know these girls a bit more. Shame the edit doesn't really do that much during this whole season, but you know, it's a start. These are definitely the best episodes of the season, I would argue. The queens go to the workroom, they all get to untuck, they get to know each other a bit more. It's kind of a nothing burger episode. Weirdly, throughout both premieres, the editors decided to, instead of including their like intro, being like, I am this person, and I competed on this season, I did this well, I placed here, here's what I've done since the season, here's what I've learned, here's what I'm gonna do better this time. Instead of doing that typical like All-Stars like recap entrance thing, when they enter the workroom, they do it throughout the episode, and it's bad. It really makes the pacing feel kind of choppy. Like Alyssa and Gala will be like talking about like, oh, here's what I did on my season, this is me, and then like Alyssa will be like, I'm the dancing diva from Muskie, Texas, and this is like my life, and I'm like, okay, here we are, sure, I guess. Anyways, it's a nothing burger episode. I think the most important storyline being Miranda LeBrow talks about her physical disability and how that is going to impact her talent show, and how her talent show, which is, spoilers, acrobatics, is kind of like an homage and love letter to the types of performances she did at the start of her drag career. Lovely, it's wonderful, I'm a fan, rooting for her, we love Miranda in this household. We also see set up in this episode that Kitty Scott Claus is going to be a bit of a shady narrator of the season. I wonder what's gonna happen here. Okay, talent show time. Episode 1, group 1. We've got Queen Kong, who does an original number. It's literally what we have seen on every single talent show to death. I personally didn't care for it too much. I enjoyed seeing her pick up a guy. She did very well. It's just not my cup of tea personally. I like to see a bit more when it comes to the talent show. But I did like the line where she was like, stand down, colonizer. That was fun. I did enjoy that. Next up is Miranda LeBrow. She does an acrobatics routine, and I loved this. This was great. This was my favorite of the night because it was well executed. She was a lot of fun, and it was, again, nice to see something so different on the main stage of Drag Race. It was fierce. I was a fan. My favorite of the night. No nuts. Kitty Scott Claus and Soa de Muse both do original songs. Kitty's number is called Live, Laugh, Love.
Okay.
Girl power, am I right? I was more partial of the original songs that night to Soa's performance because similar to how she performed on Drag Race France season 1, she has this like magnetic ability to like really connect with not just like the beats of a song, but the emotion and emote. And I was quite entranced by her. Again, not my favorite performance of the night, but all 3 of them did very well. Athena Likis does a silly little burlesque number with a bit of comedy sprinkled in, kind of like reminded me of Bosco's number from season 14. I enjoyed this, no notes. I think this is one of her stand-up performances of the season. the few that she gets. We'll get to that later, but I did enjoy this. She did great as well. And then of course the stand-up of the episode being Miss Alyssa Edwards. This to me was arguably her best episode of the season. She stomped into the workroom with a mission. She pissed all over the stage. She did like an 80s inspired aerobics talent show in which she sprinkled in all of her like Alyssa-isms, staring, tongue popping, and then also, you know, just dumping water on her at the end. It was everything to me. I was gagged. I had a blast with this. After the girls walk the runway, you can tell in this episode that there's like a very clear disparity between the types of critiques that some girls are gonna get and then Ru girls are gonna get this season. Because, oh boy, you'll have like Athena on the stage and Ru's like, oh, you did very well, it was funny, it's so you, it's so charming, I love it. And then Alyssa's in the corner and Ru's like, you're a star. I'm so proud of you. You are the next coming of drag. Jesus, like I'm so proud of you. You are a star. You were born to do drag. I love this for her. But this to me was like one of those moments where I'm like, okay, yeah, this is probably gonna be Alyssa slam dunk. We also see that they lump Untucked into the episode as a whole. It's like 10 minutes long, it's whatever. The top two is called, and it's Alyssa Edwards and Queen Kong. I don't know if I agree with Queen being there, but she did great, so I'm not gonna complain, I guess. And we see them lip sync to Rihanna's Only Girl in the World, which is a great song to cap off the season. It's a double win, which I personally would have given the win to Alyssa here, but you know, it was fine. Fine episode, great performances. Moving on to episode 2. Episode 2. At the start of this episode, we begin the season-long story arc that I like to call Nelania versus the World, in which, well, there's a lot.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
We'll clock that tea when we brew it. This is also kind of a nothing burger episode. We move on to the Maxi Challenge, which is the talent show part 2. What I do like about this talent show, it is really nice to see that this is one of 2 times in the season where the entire competitive episode centers around girls from non-RuPaul led seasons. I loved this. It was really fun to see all of these girls compete on a bit of an even playing field and just see what happens. Unfortunately, this is also the weaker of the 2 talent shows, so you win some, you lose some, I guess. Pythia kicks off the episode 2 premiere with a talent show centered around like a story time thing where she's like dressed as like a clown in like a nightgown. She does like a cute little children's story time where like the message is like the real winner and the true crown is inside you the whole time. And like, I loved it. I love that she made the outfit. I love that she did the paintings in the book herself. I found it to be a bit too cerebral. I think the judges did too. Again, it was cute, well done. I like the concept, but not a winning talent show for me. But I can't deny that this was very much in Pythia's wheelhouse, so I appreciate that. Nelania does an original song. I thought it slapped. I was a fan. Tessa Testicle does a burlesque number, and listen. I am a Tessa Testicle fan in this household. I love Miss Tessa T. This was probably the weakest of the talent shows combined. I found it to be a little messy and the humor to be a bit stilted and awkward. Galavaro does a pole dancing routine. This to me is my second favorite of the night. It's so well executed. It's sexy. She looks fantastic. Like, this is to me Galavaro's like standout episode. I think she does fantastic. Well, one of her standout episodes. And then we also have Vanity Vane, who does an original song called Creatures of the Night. It's very 80s, broody, dark. She sounds amazing on this, but again, it's nothing new for me, so I'm not like wowed by it, you know? It's just kind of like, it's, again, I need more for these talent shows. No more original songs, make it stop. And that leaves us with my personal favorite performance of this episode, Eva the Queen doing a comedy / rice tutorial song in which she teaches you how to cook a pot of rice in a steamer, and then while she's waiting, she's like, I don't really know, but I'm so into sword fighting right now. And then she whips out a saber, fights some ninjas, and then proceeds to slay. This is crazy, this sounds insane. Mega Charizard X from Temu. I was dying. And then at the end she was like, where's my rice? And then she goes over to the rice machine only to find that it was unplugged and it was never cooking the whole time. And she was like, son of a bitch! It was so good. We are so back, chat. We are so back. Slay! The girls go into Untucked after they perform, and then the top 2 are called on the main stage. It is Eva the Queen and Vanity Vane. and they lip sync to Paranoia by Dana Paula, who is the guest judge that week, and Vanity wins. I'm so happy that Vanity Vane got a win here, but I do have questions. Moving on. And this is a really good episode. This is like one of the best of the season, which is saying a lot considering it goes downhill really fast. Like in the next episode. Speaking of, episode 3, it is the ball time, the International Queen of Mystery Ball. Why was this episode 45 minutes? Was there just like no footage to work with? Like what was going on here? Also, why is Matt Rogers the guest judge? He's a comedian. Why is he judging the ball? Oh, by the way, Matt Rogers is the guest judge here. I'm losing my goddamn mind. Okay, so International Queen of Mystery Ball. 3 looks to the runway. The last one is one that you make in the workroom. The prompts are first, boss lady in charge, second, She-Vil villain, and third, International Queen of Mystery, a sexy, seductive spy look. We see in the workroom some of the major storylines of the episode coming up to fruition. We got Soa Demuse, who is not a sewer. She's nervous about the challenge. She's like, I don't like sewing, it's not my thing. We also see Pythia taking time out of her schedule to go and work on help other people's garments being put together, which is a tale as old as time on Drag Race, really like, oh no, will she have time to make her own garment? Is it gonna be good? And the last storyline this episode is Tessa Testicle being like, I have a BA in fashion, and I'm gonna make a great garment. This is not gonna go wrong at all. I really don't like it when Drag Race decides to do the ball challenge before like top 7, top 8, because there are just far too many looks to keep track of, and it's just like an absolute mess. Like, how am I supposed to remember 36 looks? You want me to remember that? This one looks like it came from Shein. How am I supposed to remember that? I had to take detailed notes just to keep track of how I felt about everyone's individual presentation. And needless to say, the outcomes this episode, after every queen presents their 3 looks, were, bad. Let's just say this was the moment this season where I knew shit was about to hit the fan hard. Pythia ends up being in the top for an excellent runway presentation. I have no disagreements on this. She did fantastic. We also see Alyssa Edwards in the top, which I do agree with the first 2 looks, but that last look was giving Greek goddess, not spy. I also consulted the Drag Race wiki for further research, and it said that Tessa Testicle was in the top. I don't know about you, but I found her first 2 looks to be progressively worse, and then that last look was, not good. But you know, she's in the top for it, which that certainly had the girls pressed and untucked. We also see in the bottom Miranda Lebrau and Athena Likis and Soa Demuse. Now, do I think they did particularly bad? No. I think there were far worse runway presentations. We get 2 big moments during the judging critiques. The first one is to highlight Alyssa's fashion and how far it's come since season 5, where she's like, Santino once said that you wore the most ugly thing he'd ever seen on the runway. And she's like, and where is he now, bitch? Which, listen, I love that for her, but also, again, this is a ball challenge, and the garment that should be judged with the most weight is the one you constructed. And Alyssa's was not giving spy at all. Was it giving Greek goddess? Yes. And if that was the category, she would have been in the top for sure, but not this time around. This is also the episode where we get the very infamous critique towards Athena Likis, in which RuPaul says, towards the look that she designed, this is not feminize your body enough, which had me quite pissed off, to be frank. Like, Jesus Christ, was that not one of many out-of-pocket comments made towards the contestants this season? Untucked, we see the cast go off towards Tessa, who's like, you should be in the bottom, girl. I don't know how you're in the top. You suck. And you know what? I kind of agree with it, because as much as I'm a Tessa Testicle defender. I love her. She's fantastic. But this garment was not giving. Miranda is called safe, and Soa and Athena Likis are put in the bottom, and they lip sync to Bad Idea Right by Olivia Rodrigo, which I do like as a lip sync song, but how do I put this delicately? It's kind of a weird decision to have your ESL queens, English second language queens, lip sync to a song that's kind of a fast rap in English. Bit weird, bit of a strange choice. Soa ends up winning the lip sync, which makes Athena Likis the pork chop of Global All-Stars. It was really unfortunate to lose her that soon, but I don't really know if I agree with her to be the bottom in the first place. So this kind of sucks. I'm not gonna lie. Episode 4 is the girl group challenge, in which they do different like genre songs around the theme of like love. It's like everybody say love, and like listen, I love that catchphrase, but why are we doing a girl group challenge with 11 queens? Like an odd number. Okay, why not? I guess. One thing I did enjoy about this episode, it was nice to see that queens from non-English speaking countries could sing in other languages. I really enjoyed Gala's verse in particular. Also, at the start of the episode, they walk into the workroom and there's no mirror message. Why was there no mirror message? Why? No exit interview either? They just rush Athena off the stage and they're like, okay, bye. Bye. That's so dumb. Why did they do that? So we see the queens divide themselves up into their teams, and then unlike in typical seasons where the girls can duke out which mix they get, RuPaul just like assigns them their, genre, which is like, I don't know. If you know anything about girl group challenges on Drag Race, if there are different genres of the song, you would know that not every genre is made equal. Like certain ones are more catchy than others, which sets groups up for success. Clearly, you see the favoritism pulling up here. Group 1 is Pythia, Soa, and Queen. They get the Latin pop mix. Group 2 is Alyssa, Miranda, Tessa, and Eva. They get the K-pop mix. And group 3 is Kitty, Gala, Nilania, and Vanity Vane. They get the Europop mix. I wonder which team is going to win. Group 1, Latin pop mix, they do pretty well. Pythia's a little struggling on her dance moves, but I thought that was generally a safe performance overall. Group 3, the Europop mix was fantastic. My standouts were obviously Nilania and Galavara, who I think did the far and away the best this episode. And then we have episode 2, which, listen, Alyssa Edwards was the robbed goddess of All Stars 2. Her big storyline is this episode is like, I've never done a girl group before. I was supposed to do Reggie Rochu, but then Detox sent me home at the makeover and saved Roxy Andrews, which, to be fair, we would have been robbed of the iconic I'm Roxy Andrews and I'm here to make it clear verse, but we have been waiting for an Alyssa Edwards girl group verse for over almost 10 years. And then we get
Hold up, wait, let me add my two. Do what you love and love what you do. Drag is fun, so don't drag your dream. Lead with love and slay the scene.
This was abysmally bad. Like, I know that we typically don't judge verses, but not only was her team like the messiest of the group, she far and away had the worst verse. In my opinion, one of the worst verses of all time. It was just abysmal. It was bad. It was really bad. But guess what? The episode was judged individually, so she doesn't have to worry, and she was called safe. The tops this episode were Queen Kong, Kitty Scott Claus, and Nilania, and the bottoms called were Miranda LaBrow, Pythia, and Vanity Vane? Why? She did fine. Now, I do agree with most of the top placements. I feel like this should have just been judged in teams, and the win should have been given to someone else. But we move to Untucked. We see the cast kind of, discuss who they think is going to be in the top, who they think is going to be in the bottom, and they also agree that Nilania is someone who could potentially be in the bottom. And Nilania, who is definitely feeling some type of way, as she hinted earlier in the episode, being like, I feel like some people just underestimate me. She goes, well, yeah, you guys kind of underestimate me, and it makes me feel bad, and like, it's someone here just makes me feel bad. And then the rest of the cast is like, just say their name, girl, confront them. And then Nilania's like, no, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to eat those nachos. It's everyone. And this pisses the whole cast off, and it gets so messy, and it's like, honestly really uncomfortable to watch. And then Queen Kong is like, no, girl, don't come for me if you're not going to say their names. And it's like, oh god, this is too much. I'm sure you can imagine this had Twitter in shambles. It was a mess. And despite this, you would think that Nilania, who not only did very well this episode and kind of like had like an underdog storyline all episode long, get the win. But then it goes to Kitty Scott Claus. Why? Like, what? Galavaro and Nelly were right there, like, oh my god, this is gonna make me lose brain cells, it's so bad. Anyways, oh my god. Bottom 2 is called, it's Miranda LaBrow, which is unfortunate. Her whole storyline this episode was, I'm not very good at physicality anymore because of my disability, but I'm on a team with Alyssa Edwards, who I really admire and I love, and I want to try to push myself for her. And she's pretty stiff in the performance and misses quite a few beats, so I can understand her being in the bottom. Vanity Vane, no. But this does start the storyline of throughout the season of Vanity Vane becoming the lip sync assassin of Global All-Stars, and while I don't agree with some of the judging around Vanity, I certainly do think that she absolutely curb stomps like 95% of the lip syncs that she does, so I'm here for watching her perform. Miranda goes home. Again, sad moment, but unfortunately, this was one of those moments where I was like, yeah, that makes sense. It's her time. Episode 5, the top of the episode, the girls make up after their whole big fight in Untucked. Queen Kong is like, hey, here's my reasoning for why I feel this way. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And then they're like, it's fine, girl. And then they move on. Twitter loved to not remember that part, but you know, we'll get to that later. This week, it's an acting challenge, which usually are dog shit on Drag Race, and I hate most of them. And this one is not much of an exception. But I do like the concept, which is booby. The booby sequels, which is like a parody of Barbie, but the emphasis is on booby. So like they'll take like the whole like, hey Barbie from, you know, the Barbie movie in 2023, which iconic, we love her, Stan Greta Gerwig, but Gerwig, oof, Stan Greta Gerwig, oh my god. This is another episode where the girls get to pick their groups, but RuPaul, once again, assigns each group their genre. And if you know anything from genres in Drag Race, is that not every single one is made equal. I love that. Already, I am just so done with like the lack of agency that a lot of these girls have on the season. Like, it's just really bad. It's not great. And one of the teams consists of Ru girls, Alyssa, Queen, and Kitty. I wonder who's gonna win. Group 1, their theme is Frankenbooby, and that consists of Gala, Eva, Vanity, and Tessa. This group was fine. I didn't particularly care either way. They had some funny moments. Vanity Vane was far and away my favorite in the challenge, and then Gala being second for me. Eva the Queen really was the only one for me that struggled here. Group 2 is Boobies of the Caribbean, and this consists of Pythia, Soa, and Nelania. To me, this was the best of the week. They all did excellent. There was no missed notes, and Nelania and Pythia genuinely gave me some pretty hearty chuckles here. And then last but certainly not least is Jurassic Booby. Queen, Kitty, and Alyssa. Listen, I think Queen did fantastic here. Like, of the 3 groups, she did the best overall. But this is a team challenge to me, and I think it should be judged in teams, and you should reward the best team and then the best person on that team. That's how I would have judged. Well, Queen did great, and Kitty was phoned in most of the time, and Alyssa did about as bad, if not slightly better, than her acting performance that got her eliminated on All Stars 2. I think the old lady shtick definitely saved her from the bottom, and she definitely could play it up just a little bit, but it was still pretty stiff and I didn't enjoy it. Wouldn't you know that that was called as the high placing team of the week, and Queen Kong is given the win, which, listen, if you're gonna give it to someone on that team, I'm glad it's Queen, but Soa Demuse in the confessional was like, I thought our team was the best, but listen, if that's how the judges are gonna judge it, that's how they're gonna judge it, and she has far more grace than I do, because I would have popped the off in Untucked if that was the case. Like,
No, I know what she's done to me. You have no idea what she has done.
could you imagine being on the best team that week and then the judges are just openly playing in your face? I hate this season so much! Ah! Eva has a bit of a breakdown in Untucked, which, again, she did the worst of the week. She is in the bottom with Tessa Testicle, who was a bit stiff in her challenge, but definitely safe as hell. And Galavaro, who was thrown in the bottom for her runway that week, which the category was Browntown. Everyone did pretty good. And they said that Gala did amazing in the challenge, and yet they threw her in the bottom. Arr! I hate it. This is so bad. Arr! She has no business being in the bottom. It's crazy to me, but... So the bottom 2 ends up being Galavaro and Eva La Queen. They lip sync to Take On Me by Aha, which initially I thought was such an insane lip sync choice for Drag Race. But this season proved me wrong, because it can get weirder. And Gala sends poor Eva home, which, damn, she started off on such a high note, and then just had a bad week, and I feel so bad, and I just, my heart breaks for her. My heart breaks for her. I love you, Eva. I love you, girly. Episode 6, this is the design challenge. We are doing cocktail dresses. The theme is, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and the cast are tasked with creating dresses from materials that someone else brought from home, which clearly sets up certain cast members with a complete advantage, knowing that not every single queen on the cast has the exact same financial resources. Like, here is like Soa bringing, you know, typical stretch fabric, and then Alyssa has fucking ostrich feathers. What? The cast ends up pairing up with each other, and then they have to swap cases. For example, Tessa and Alyssa pair up together, and then they swap cases, and Tessa gets Alyssa's very high quality materials, which, again, gives her probably the biggest advantage of everyone in the cast. We also see the big storyline this episode is Nilania having a bit of a breakdown in the workroom because the fabrics that Kitty brought from home that she got from her are hard to work with. Twitter also did not like this at all. This episode also birthed the very now infamous margarita pizza meme.
Do you have a slogan or a line? You know, is there an Italian phrase?
Margarita pizza.
Oh, great. Go up to Rue. I'm burping right now. This cider is really getting to me right now. I'm having fun. We're just chatting. I'm keying with you. It's fun. We're suffering. I love it. Slay. Outside of the big workroom conflict with Nilania and Kitty, this is just like a typical standard design challenge. Untucked was nothing burger. Tessa ends up winning the episode to the shock of literally no one, but I'm so glad she redeemed herself from the ball challenge because I was a bit skeptical and she delivered and she looked great. And again, whenever a queen from a non-English speaking franchise won this season, I was dying. I was so happy. Stan Tessa Testicle. Yeah. Bottom two this episode though was Gallavaro, who came out in a pretty well-constructed cocktail dress, a bit wonky in the padding, but not badly constructed by any means, and Soa Demuse, who, her garment was a little rough. But why? Like, she was not that bad. Vanity Vane came out in that. Why? What is wrong with the judging this season? It's so weird. And then Alyssa, you could also argue that Alyssa's dress was also pretty sketchy. Not the best constructed out of the girls, and I quite frankly hate that tinsel. That ugly-ass blue tinsel wig from hell that she wore. Anyways, Vanity is called safe, and the bottom two end up being Gallavaro and Soa Demuse. They lip-sync to Bang Bang by Jessie J. Great lip-sync choice. We see Gala curb stomps in the end, and Soa Demuse is sent home in 9th, which is sad because I was rooting for Soa so hard when the cast was announced. She was in my top 4. And I'm really sad she didn't win, but it's fine because she gets her flowers later. Twice, actually. Episode 7 is the Snatch Game of Love. This was the worst episode of the season for me. I hated it. It was not only an abysmal Snatch game, but it was so cringy, and like I wanted to like actively like rip my skin off the whole time. The only thing I actively liked about this episode was the fact that Los Javis from Drag Race España, which again, the fact that they had like no representation on the season is absolutely insane to me when like Venedita Von Dash was right there. Why didn't you send her? The mini challenge this episode is centered around a very niche dating app that nobody knows about. What? Why a dating app? This is so weird. So divided into two groups. Obviously, this has no bearing on the actual judging of the season. It's just to make things a bit more concise between the two groups because they're supposed to romance a bachelor behind a blind sugar wall. Get it? Because this is gay. Gay people are funny. Har har, vagina, lol. Tessa Testicle plays German nightlife icon Suzanne Bartsch. Queen Kong does a fictional character that's a parody of King Kong. Can we please stop doing this on Drag Race? Just like, play an actual celebrity. No more of this fictional character bullshit. Why was Tsunami the gold tooth fairy? That's not even a real person! What? Nilania ends up playing Valentino, a fashion designer from Italy. Alyssa Edwards reprises her winning performance from All Stars 2. She actually did win the Rusical as his character. Annie Oakley. Vanity Vane plays Lorene. Gallavaro plays Laura Leon, who is a telenovela actress from Mexico. Pavia plays Zeus. after she chooses to take a risk and switch her character. And Kitty Scott Claus plays Princess Diana. I will start with the good here. Nelania, Pythia, and Kitty Scott Claus all did fantastic, and they ended up being in the top this episode. I liked it, no notes, they did great, funny shit. I was entertained. However, seriously needed to be an investigation on not just the state of Snatch Game, but a larger discussion, a nuanced discussion in the fandom as to why one of the things that RuPaul finds the most funny are people playing caricatures of their culture or ethnicity. Like, again, this goes back to Margarita Pizza. Why? It's not funny! And to make things worse, we throw in group 1, where Gallivaro's also struggling, Queen Kong, which I genuinely think is the only thing that she did this season that is actually worth criticizing. The Bachelor asks the group, what if you were to smell like something, what would it be? And Queen Kong interjects for poor Gallivaro, who's already bombing at this point. She says, I hope you don't take offense to this, tacos. What the fuck?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
What the fuck? What the fuck was that? We see the tops are, as predicted, Pythia, Nelania, and Kitty. They all did great, no notes. The judges were singing Pythia's praises. I do think she did the best of the tops, and like, she got, I think, the most consistently good critiques of the season, period, blank, full stop. And then Kitty gets the win. Again! Why? Like, she was like, she did fine. But like, Pythia was right there. Anyways, bottom 2 ends up being Vanity and Gala, who both do pretty abysmally in this episode. Most of the cast is middling to abysmal. Tessa barely eked them out, but I think through her runway, but definitely Vanity Vane and Galivaro were the worst of the episode. And then they end up lip syncing to Mana Mana from the fucking Muppets. I think this was the most unhinged lip sync of the season. Vanity kills it. I'm just kind of in shock that this was a choice to begin with, but Vanity sends Galivaro home, cementing her as the lip sync assassin of the season, and we move on to the next episode. 07s to my queen, Miss Galivaro. I love you, diva. Call me. Episode 8. It's the roast challenge. Why are we doing back-to-back comedy challenges? Please spice it up a little bit. I wrote in my notes also in this episode, I wrote, in quotes, ugh, I'm so bored of this season. Kitty ends up getting, in this episode, the ability to determine the order of the roast. I will give her credit where credit's due. I like the strategy of being like, I'm determining the order of the roast and you're not finding out until the day of. I thought that was good. Graham Norton is the guest judge this episode, and there's just like a suspicious amount of like coffee references. When he does the workroom like walkthrough with all the girls, they're all sitting on the couch and like sharing their ideas and notes with him, and they're all sipping coffee, and it's like, is there a shadow sponsor here? Why is the theme for this roast coffee? I'm very confused. We get into the roast, the maxi challenge. Kitty Scott Claus is up first, and she does good. It's well paced, but I found a lot of her jokes to be kind of punching down a little bit on the cast. I personally would have liked it if she punched down a little less in her humor, but that's just me. That's just my taste, you know? Vanity Vane is up second, and she decides to sing her roast. And it is abysmally bad, because not only are the jokes not funny, she's pitchy as fuck. Which is ironic because she won episode 2 with an original song. Genuinely, her bombing the roast, I'm gonna say something controversial, is like down there with Utica. Like, it's almost so bad, it's good. But Utica had a bit more iconic moments to make it like wrap around to being good. This was just like bad. Like, this genuinely made me want to like peel my skin off and like cover my eyes with it. Pythia is up third, and she does about as badly as she did on Canada's Drag Race Season 2's roast. There were a couple moments where I was like, haha. It lacked an iconic moment to save her. We didn't get the iconic make me laugh. You know, it just wasn't that good. Alyssa goes fourth, and she does better. A lot better, actually, than her roast on season 5, the one that she ended up in the bottom 2 for. again, it's a lot of Alyssa-isms. Reminds me a lot of Angeria's roast on season 14, where the jokes are kind of bad, but she sells the hell out of it that I would be okay with calling it safe. Nelania ends up going third. She eats this challenge up. It's so good. I'm a fan. She even pokes fun at the whole margarita pizza joke and like throws a pizza box off the stage. It's great. I just think RuPaul is, I just love Nelania, okay? I love her. She did so great this episode. She did great all season long. Tessa Testicle is low in this episode, and she also does pretty bad. Again, I think her runway is what saved her again from the bottom, but she was also bad here. But far and away, the breakout star of this episode was Queen Kong. She had the best roast, a great runway. She made me piss my pants. Like, I was having a great time with it. I loved her ending line being like, if you like my roast, my name is Queen Kong, and if you don't, you're racist. It was so good. She ate that. I love Queen. She ate that so much. Untucked was a nothing burger this episode again, and we end up seeing the win of the episode go to Queen Kong and Kitty Scott Claus, which means it's a double win. Why? It's beyond me. Nelania is high, Alyssa's called safe, so is Tessa, who is low. Bottom two ends up being Pythia and Vanity Vane, who is on her third lip sync now, fourth overall, third bottom two lip sync of the season, and they lip sync to I Drove All Night by Celine Dion. Kind of interesting how they chose to time this song with the Canadian Queen being in the bottom. It definitely made my suspicions rise a little bit. To me, this is the lip sync of the season. But not because of Pythia, she did great though, but Vanity Vane, just something like took over her and she just absolutely like bodied the song. The category on the runway this week was also Blow Me Away, in which everyone's like runways were kind of themed around like air, body, lace, and like both of them like had like the wind blowing on them on the stage, and it just like elevated the performance so good, and they were both so good and they both look amazing. But of course Pythia is not the strongest lip syncer of the cast, and Vanity sends her ass packing, which is unfortunate, but she ate that. Pythia was my winner pick going into the season, and I was really sad that she didn't make it all the way to at least top 5, but I think she had a really strong showing, and I think if she was just a bit funnier when it came to roast humor, I truly think she would have won the season. I don't think I'm controversial in saying that. All right, episode 9. This one is crazy. This is another episode that Twitter had an absolute field day. It's the makeover challenge, in which we're at top 6, and the eliminated queens come in to the episode and they all pair up with each other. Kind of like season 11, where they bring over returning queens from the eliminated batch to be made over by the top 5. The pairs are Queen and Soa, Nelania and Pythia, Alyssa and Eva, Vanity and Gala, Tessa and Athena, and Kitty and Miranda. I haven't talked too much about the storylines in general each episode because most of them are non-existent, but this is an episode that does have very clear storylines, specifically because Tessa has been consistently placing low these last couple episodes. She feels thoroughly underestimated by the cast, especially because the mini challenge was cast superlatives. And they love to say at the end of this kind of challenge, who's going home next? And the entire cast, except for Nelania, picked Tessa, and Nelania picked herself, because she did not want to catch flack from anyone else. Yikes. And the other storyline this episode is Nelania's running behind and struggling with Pythia's makeup the day they're supposed to present their makeovers on the runway. This was the first episode of the season where I felt like the judging was not like completely crazy, and I wasn't like actively slamming my head into the desk. This was Nelania's breakout episode. After spending most of the season being underestimated by the cast, Nelania shines through and she clinches the win with her partner Pythia, which I think this was a completely deserved win. She looked fabulous, the makeovers were gorgeous. The makeup on Pythia was a bit sketchy, but if you squint hard enough, it doesn't look that bad. We also see Queen Kong, Alyssa also being in the top, and then the bottom 3 this episode ends up being Kitty, Vanity, and Tessa. And then we go into Untucked, and we have yet another moment where the Nelania versus the world storyline kind of cranks to a boil after disappearing in the edit for many, many episodes, despite what fans would have you think. Nelania's about to win, she's feeling so good, and then Queen Kong out of nowhere seemingly just pops off at her. Again, Twitter had an absolute field day with this episode. It was crazy, girl. It was bad. Kitty and Vanity end up lip syncing in the bottom 2 to Believe by Cher. Listen, I really think Cher is owed a RuPaulology after this lip sync. because not even Vanity Vane could save it, and she was definitely, you could tell, pretty tired and clocked out. Kitty does a kind of like funny little karaoke number featuring some very crunchy dips, but she sends Vanity, the lip sync assassin, home because there's no way in hell that they're gonna send Kitty Scott Claus home this season, and Vanity goes home in 6th. Episode 10, the top 5 end up doing like little travel advertisements for their countries. It's a very like standard advertisement challenge episode. Nothing huge happens outside of, again, the girls coming back into the workroom from the episode prior, and of course Queen Kong apologizing to Nelania and the cast for her behavior in Untucked, explaining it and moving on. But out of all the performances this episode, Alyssa was the scene stealer far and away. She did the absolute best. She popped all of her Alyssa-isms into it. It was a very clean, good advertisement. That is one of her strengths for sure. Nelania and Kitty also did very well, which leaves us with a bottom 2 of Tessa Testicle and Queen Kong in this, once again, nothing burger episode. I haven't mentioned Tessa too much in the storyline and edit of the season, and that's because after her win, she kind of just disappears, and which is really unfortunate because she's such a superstar, but we end up seeing Queen Kong and Tessa Testicle lip sync to Don't Leave Me This Way by Thelma Houston, and Queen absolutely just curb stomps poor Tessa, who does great in the challenge, and the lip sync, but it's Queen Kong. It's hard to compare to her in an episode like this. Like, she absolutely is just eating the fuck out of the shit. But we are not left, of course, without an iconic exit a la Jimbo, Canada Season 1 from Tessa Testicle, who goes home in 5th. Love you, girl. Absolutely slated the season. Big hugs, big love. Episode 11 and 12. I'm gonna group these two together because there isn't really like much to say about episode 11. It's just like a reunion Lollapalooza with RuPaul songs, like what they did in season 16, where they had all the eliminated queens come together and do like a lip sync tournament for the win and a cash prize for the queen of She Done Already Done Has Hers. Queen of She Done Already Done Had Hers. That's a really difficult name to say. Why is RuPaul giving that title to people? Soda Muse has her lip sync redemption and she snatches the $50,000 cash prize. I'm so happy. We love Soda Muse in this household. Moving on to the finale, the final competitive episode is centered around a verse challenge, kind of like in other previous seasons of Drag Race, except there's also an added element of doing and teaching a TikTok dance. And then when they shoot the music video for the remix, and they have the dancers watch the screen where the girls are doing like, I punched my light. The queens are doing like a little like TikTok verse challenge and like doing the dance. The dancers in the pit group don't actually follow along with the TikTok dances. Like, what was the point of all of this stress of like, you have to like teach them, the pit crew, how to do a TikTok dance through a music video, and then like no one in the cast is following it. It's so funny. Wow, it's so over. It's Jover, man. I'm so over it. We're almost done. I'm so done with this season. Oh my god. So the focus of this whole episode is really on Alyssa. You know, she started off strong. She climbed her way back up to the top. She ended strong. And after three runs on the show, she is finally ready to take her crown. After the queens walk their Coronation Eleganza runway, the eliminated queens return for a final runway, and we are about to be like, okay, the challenge was judged. Who is making it to the final lip sync? They all of the top 4, Nelania, Queen Kong, and Kitty Scott Claus, all of them make it to the top 4, and they all lip sync individually to Bad Romance by Lady Gaga, and Alyssa Edwards wins the season when she doesn't even have the best track record of the finalists. So, in the interest of being fair and balanced, I do want to share what I think actually worked about this season, just so I'm not being all like negative and starting things off on a bad note. Because recapping the season has already made me lose brain cells, and I would like to at least try to see the positive in an absolute trash fire. First and foremost, I think this cast is stacked. Like, consisting of pretty much only frontrunners and/or fan favorites from around the world. No notes. I also really loved getting to see queens from other franchises that didn't get a ton of exposure, queens that I had not really seen on their seasons before, fall in love with them, and get to really understand their perspective on drag to an extent based on the edit. So queens like Athena Likis and Miranda Lebrau, Vanity Vane. I wasn't super familiar with a ton of the work that they had done on their season, and it was really wonderful to see a lot of them have moments to shine and excel in the art of drag and in the competition. I also really loved getting to see girls that I had previously adored on their original seasons come back for a second shot. Pythia, Queen Kong, Kitty Scott Claus, Soa Demuse, Eva La Queen, and of course my sweet princess Alyssa Edwards. She was actually my favorite on All Stars 2 before she got eliminated. Like, Shut Up and Drive is like my favorite like lip sync of all time for the franchise, dare I say? And I am such an Alyssa fan that like, it feels really crummy that she was on this season, but I'm glad she was there. The Lollapalooza was a nice reprieve from the absolute insanity that was this season. Getting to see all the girls, you know, compete on an even, fair playing field, and seeing Soa Demuse take it at the end, I felt so vindicated because this was a rough season to be a Soa Demuse fan. This was a rough season to be a fan of anyone, but it was definitely a bad season for us Soa Demuse defenders. And I just was like, yes, mother, take it, yes! Thirdly, I thought Eva La Queen's talent show was like my favorite thing ever. Again, just seeing her walk out and slay Mega Charizard X from Temu will forever be just like living in my head rent-free. Like, that's my mother. I don't know, I really liked Vanity Vane's performances on this season as a lip syncer. That was also nice. Yeah, that's it. There has been a popular argument with fans of the show since Global All-Stars has finished airing that Alyssa Edwards was a cop-out crowning. Queen Kong and Kitty Scott Claus were like vitriolically hated by the fans, even though production was pushing them, and Elenia didn't have the win equity to justify giving her the crown, so that just leaves Alyssa. Staff writer for Extra Magazine, Kevin O'Keefe writes,
"Choosing Alyssa can't help but feel like a compromised choice. The fandom wanted Elenia, the on-set production team seemingly wanted Queen, and Ru himself seemed most drawn to Kitty's drag sensibility. There was no way to satisfy everyone, so Global All-Stars crowned someone who would likely offend no one."
Okay, now here's why I think that take is bullshit. When we look at previous seasons of Drag Race, both international and in the United States, there have been a plethora of fan favorites with less win equity that have won the crown. Evie Oddly and Willow Pill famously won their original seasons with only 1 win compared to the runner-up who had 3. Lawrence Chaney won RuPaul's Drag Race UK Series 2 with only 3 wins compared to Bimini's 4. And Venus also won Canada's Drag Race Season 4 with only a single win. Electra Bionic won Drag Race Italia Season 1 with 0 wins. So, if producers really cared about track record being the reason why they crowned someone, we wouldn't have a bunch of Bimini truthers still in Lauren's comments section now, would we? Point being here is, Nelania was the overwhelming fan favorite this season. They could have crowned her very easily. So why didn't they? As for Queen Kong and Kitty Scott Claus being RuPaul's favorites, I mean, kind of, I can see that. I mean, production was definitely pushing them, and some of their wins were rather questionable throughout the season. But let's be honest, they are good competitors on Drag Race, and I thought they did pretty good all season long. However, whoever was in that editing room piecing the season together must have had a vendetta against those girls. I cannot imagine what either Queen or Kitty had done to that editor to specifically piss them off to create such a unflattering and gross villain edit. We have not seen a villain edit that unflattering or two-dimensional since Fifi O'Hara on both Season 4 and All-Stars 2. Like, Christ on a cracker, man. Truly, who in their right minds, you know, was in that room looking through the final edits of the season and thinking to themselves, oh yeah, the fans are gonna love these girls. Let's crown them right now. They've got 3 wins. Blah, 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 blah.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
I'm gonna say something controversial here. and y'all don't want to hear it, but I truly do think Alyssa Edwards was going to be crowned from the jump. She's not only like a massive alumni from the show, she has had an illustrious career both in and out of drag. She is widely respected among the fan base and drag artists, period. And in many ways, she is the Drag Race success story. Alyssa Edwards is just an insanely talented performer, artist, creative, but she has a very specific skill set that I would argue is not very conducive for Drag Race. She makes a great TV personality. She is such a fantastic and captivating performer, but she's not the best competitor. All of her top placements were typically centered around wins where she could either whip out a lot of her Alyssa-isms and make the audience laugh, or dance and perform, like a Rusical or the talent show. And in any other instance where she was performing, she was either safe as fuck or in the bottom. To me, what makes a good winner storyline on Drag Race is not just about what you bring to the art of drag in the competition, but versatility as a performer. Like, what skills do you have that make you stand out both as an artist and an entertainer? And to return to a previous example, because I don't want any of you weirdos on the internet thinking I'm trying to dismiss their win here, Venus did only win season 4 of Canada's Drag Race with a single challenge win. Yes. And she was also an extremely strong competitor and was in the top most of the competition. Like, she was a pretty good runner-up for most of the challenges, and you could even argue in some instances she should have won. Like, I fully think she should have won the Rusical. Hot take. Love you, Aurora Matrix fans. Don't come for me. But the point being is, yes, she may have had one win, and you could say the same for Evie or Willow, but every single one of them also aced the competition and didn't need an extra win to pad out their equity because they performed so strong. So if you have a predetermined winner pick, Alyssa, who is kind of underperforming in most of the competition, and yet a huge contingency of your fan base cares about track record, and competitive strength matters because at the end of the day, it's not just a reality TV show, it's a competitive reality TV show. How do you justify this winner placement? So, what do? Character assassination. And that is exactly what I think the producers did to Queen Kong and Kitty Scott Claus. I bet they left the competition with like 3 wins under their belt, 1 bottom placement, all thinking, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. I got this in the bag. I got a shot here. I could beat Alyssa Edwards. F yeah. And then the moment that the season dropped, it's just like, oh, well, there goes that. And I truly do believe that this was done to keep Alyssa Edwards sympathetic to the audience. Again, we have seen villains make it to the finals of a competition. Plain Jane, Violet Chachki, for example, come to mind. But in those instances, the villain edits were not two-dimensional. Rather, we got to get to know more about their personal lives. We got to see them have moments of humanity and self-reflection. Here, Queen and Kitty are just shown all of their bad or shady, ugly moments, and it's just like, what are we doing here, man? Again, I do want to emphasize, I do realize this comes off all as super tinfoil hatty, but let's not pretend that production has not pulled this kind of stunt before. Who's to say that they wouldn't do it again? Let's go a bit deeper here though, because there is more to this beyond production riggery and sabotage. I have a question. Why host an international competition of drag where you invite countries from all around the world and market it as not just a friendly, fair competition, but a celebration of all different types of expression of drag in different cultures, if you're only going to prop up Western expressions of drag? Of the cast, 4 of the 12 competitors are from countries where English is the first language, and 3 of them are finalists. 7 of the 10 competitive episodes are won by them, including all of the comedy challenges, and the American representative takes the crown. Not a great look. Global All-Stars was marketed as an international competition, a celebration of drag from all different kinds of cultures around the world, a fair shot at the crown, and yet the entire cast had to meet an English language requirement, They had to cater to American sensibilities of drag, and it was hosted and judged by mostly Americans, if not guest judges from Western countries. But we are kidding ourselves here if we are to think that the producers really did have any other audience in mind when crafting Global All-Stars. Because Global All-Stars was made by and primarily for its American fan base. And these standards that the cast has to adapt to makes little to no room for other ideas of art, culture, drag, or whatever to flourish. Rather, it asks its contestants, and by extension, the audience, to flatten their ideas of what queer and trans art looks like, because that is the kind of stuff that will be more easily marketable to a mass global market. For instance, take the whole "you're not feminizing your body enough" critique, which, aside from being how insanely out of pocket it was also incredibly dismissive of an essential aspect of what Athena Likis' drag is, and Belgian drag. It's often political and gender non-conformist. This also does apply to the art of comedy as well. When we return to the roast episode, Nelania said in the confessionals leading up to the challenge that roast humor is not commonplace in Italy, and yet the producers expect her and other queens who come from different cultures where different senses of humor are commonplace to adapt and treat this as like the universal standard. Like every queen, regardless of what country that you come from or what types of humor are most prevalent in your culture, must know how to perform a roast and perform deprecative humor because it is expected to be a part of a universal skill set. And to build on top of that with other comedy challenges like the Snatch Game or going back to the roast, RuPaul tends to find the cast and queens from non-English speaking countries at their funniest when they're playing a racial or ethnic stereotype, ones that Americans often perpetuate through pop culture. Enter
Margarita pizza.
I don't think it's a controversial thing to say that this is just another form of colonization. In order for you to thrive, to have your rags to riches story in front of the most famous drag queen in the world and have your big moment on the most visible stage in the world for drag, you have to sacrifice what makes your art authentic to your identity and culture. And even in the end, it was still not enough for most of the girls. Caveat, I do think Queen Kong getting a chance to make it to the end and often highlight and be praised for her art that incorporates a lot of Pacifica indigeneity is wonderful. That's great. That's a slay, but that's the outlier in this scenario. Winners of Drag Race are often chosen not just because of what they bring to the art of drag, but also because of their global mass market appeal. It's hard to advertise, say, German sensibilities of humor to a mass global market, but an American queen who is the most successful of the franchise, who embodies a kind of universal standard. Since her crowning, Alyssa has appeared in commercials for global health brands like Mr. She has toured around the world, and most importantly, as the RuPaul anointed ambassador for global drag, has appeared on other franchises around the world, most notably Espana 4's live finale, which, listen, I love that the crowd went wild for her. It's amazing because she deserves that level of success. She's worked so hard for it. But let's not pretend that someone from the cast would probably get that same level of reaction from the crowd, which is in no way intended to be a diss at her. It's just the fact that Alyssa is an incredibly famous drag queen known around the world by pretty much everyone in the scene. This, to me, just further proves at the end of the day, World of Wonder will always prioritize its American casts and queens because they are always the most profitable. And that sucks because now we have all these fans around the world bemoaning,
"Oh, there's too much Drag Race these days. How am I supposed to keep up?"
it's like, I don't think people in the States can comprehend that something was not made for them in mind. And so that continues this cycle of where we get new franchises around the globe being greenlit, only to be underfunded and canceled after 2 seasons, with the most successful ones continuing on, not just because of their success in their home countries, but because of the success that they hold with American audiences. We have seen time and again around the world, pop culture in other countries try to fit and default to American standards for a greater global mass market appeal. speaking English in songs, holding distinctly American beliefs and attitudes. The phenomenon is not anything new, but it does posit Americanness and to a larger extent, whiteness as a profitable universal standard. In his 2008 book titled Fabricating the Absolute Fake, America and Contemporary Pop Culture, Dutch scholar Jaap Koeneman writes,
rather than transforming the world into another USA, thereby replacing national, local, and regional cultures, American pop culture presents itself using the commercial rhetoric of advertising as being universal.
The first chapter of The Absolute Fake is a deconstruction and analysis of the 1985 charity song We Are the World, written by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie for the supergroup USA for Africa, which is kind of crazy that the script was written right before the Grammys, and then seeing it performed at the Grammys, I was like, this is a moment of serendipity. I have to work on this project now. While it is largely a critique of the song and the marketing and the troubling tone it all set for, setting Americanness as the default, I think a lot of Koeneman's talking points can be applied to Drag Race here. I believe catering to American pop culture to have a global mass market appeal is a valid marketing strategy, but it also is often done so at the expense of what makes us human, what makes art resonant, what makes different cultures beautiful. And under this white supremacist idea of pop culture, Americanisms are treated as king. English, whiteness, American beauty standards, etc. And Drag Race, as a brand, a competition, a reality TV format, is inherently an American export. So popular that countries around the world have tried to replicate it. Rather than try to craft their own unique identity or spin on the format of the show, international iterations around the world recreate the American format of Drag Race down to the Snatch Game because it creates a sense of audience familiarity and it's incredibly profitable. Sure, there's a language barrier, but you've seen the show before happen in the United States. You can get the gist of it even without subtitles. I regularly watch Drag Race España, France, and the Philippines, so format consistency is something that I appreciate because I don't speak French, Spanish, or Tagalog. There is a counter argument here along the lines of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And yes, I don't disagree with that take, but let's use improv rules here. Yes, it is wonderful that this franchise has a successful consistency that allows for audiences around the world to kind of pick up what is happening even if there's a language barrier. Yes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yes, and this is an insanely profitable format. And if you think I'm wrong here, just take a second and try to think off the top of your head, outside of Dragula, what is a drag reality TV competition show around the world or in the States that you can think of that is still going to this day and has the exact same level of success or notoriety as Drag Race? Exactly. They can't all be Dragula. Not everyone is that lucky. This to me just adds a whole nother layer as to why I think the cast of Global All-Stars Season 1, including its winner and finalists, were failed. Because not only is there production riggery or, a dismissal of culture and sense of identity with your art and drag by the judges and production and the fans, but now also there's profit to be considered here. So answer my question. Why make Katie Scott Claus the pork chop for the ball challenge, even though we all agree she kind of did sucked in it? Why would you send her home first if that's going to tank a large portion of your weekly audience? That's just simply not a profitable decision. It would save World of Wonder so much more money and retain a larger weekly audience if they sent a queen from a smaller, less known franchise home first than someone from a massive, large franchise that is incredibly successful in its home country and in the US home first. So not only are these girls having their cultural perspectives on their artistry dismissed by the judges and the fans, and there's production riggery, but now their competitive longevity is literally dependent on how successful their original franchises are. That is crazy. I hate that. I hate that so much. Now, I can hear y'all in my comment section or in my DMs or on Blue Sky or God forbid Twitter clacking it out on the keyboard saying, Archie, it's just a reality TV show. It's not that deep. But that's the problem here, right? reality TV shows still contain political messaging and subtext. It is never not that deep. In a 2022 article for the British Psychology Society, writer Matthew Warren discusses the American dream and its integralness to the rags to riches story that is often prevalent in reality TV competitions like the American Idol. In the conclusion, he writes,
"There's an importance of studying the socio-political messages implicit in TV shows, particularly in light entertainment, which has traditionally been ignored by researchers in favor of news and other overtly political media."
And to bring back fabricating the absolute fake and yup Kuhneman,
pop cultural artifacts being produced, marketed, and consumed as pleasurable experiences just makes it easier to take their ideological content for granted.
The overt text of Global All-Stars is, in a international battle royale of drag for the crown, where all different kinds of countries come to compete, Alyssa Edwards beat out her competition and is therefore the best competitor. The subtext of Global All-Stars is, in order to succeed in a multicultural competition and reach a global mass market and have success there, your drag must appeal to an American idea of art. That f***ing sucks. I mean, just look at how starstruck queens like Miranda LeBrow and Vanity Vane are to stand in front of and get to interact with a legend and an icon in our community, to spend hundreds of dollars piecing together a runway package that barely gets to be shown, plus have to cater to American ideas of drag, queerness, and art, or be sent home early in the competition and still get a superficial edit. These girls got a raw deal. Like, Gallavaro is the lovable slut. Vanity Vane is always stuck in her head. Kitty Scott Claus is a shady bitch. Queen Kong is the devil. Nelania is a crybaby. I barely got to learn anything about this cast beyond their original seasons. Anything at all. Their art, their culture, their ideas, their politics, whatever. I barely learned anything. And this was all done in favor to create a narrative and edit that posits America as king. And really, in the year of our Lord 2024, did we really need to see that neoliberal bullshit? And speaking of neoliberal bullshit, something I don't see talked about enough when it comes to the really poor quality of this season is how a lot of it was brought down by the fans. Not production, not the cast, but like the fans of the show. I think it is both healthy and necessary to have nuance about media. And when it comes to Drag Race, I would even go so far as to say it is perfectly okay to disagree with the outcome of a challenge or season, you know, so long as you're being respectful about it. However, in the case of Global All-Star Season 1, week in, week out, it was just think piece over discourse on the hell site that is twitter.com from the most unfunny, unoriginal people you have ever met on the planet. Like, and so much of that discourse was targeted directly at the cast itself. So, Nelania, am I right? She certainly was the main character of the season. The producers of Global All-Stars definitely set her up to have this underdog storyline where in a competition full of big personalities, she was the dark horse, the black sheep. And I think they were attempting, at least, to do a modern retelling of Jinx Monsoon's storyline all the way back from season 5 with Relaska Talks. You know, she is the lovable outsider, the weirdo, the quirky one in a pack full of catty, loud, mean girls.
This one's for all my mean girls. This one's for all my bad girls.
The main antagonists in Jinx's storyline were Relaska Talks, a clique consisting of Alaska, Detox, and especially Roxy Andrews. We would often see throughout the competition, especially towards the end when those four became the top four of the season, conflicts in the workroom between Jinx and Roxy, shady confessionals, moments of underestimating Jinx in the workroom or in the challenges, despite her doing very well. And these underdog storylines exist in both reality television and competitions and stories and media in general because it wants us, the audience, to sympathize and empathize with the underdog. It builds a fan base. They want us to root for her. It creates a compelling hero's journey, and more importantly, it creates a viable contender for the crown. Fandom response to Roxy Andrews in particular, who was the most vocal critic of Jinx Monsoon of the Alaska Talks pack, was very similar to the way fans responded to Queen Kong and Kitty Scott Claus during this season. Discourse, dogpiling, racism, rallying to defend the underdog, co-opting social justice language, racism, body shaming, armchair psychoanalysis, racism. I don't think you're picking up a theme here. Racism. I think the editors really thought that they ate with the storyline, but Jinx's journey in season 5 was completely lightning in a bottle for 3 particular reasons. Number 1, Jinx was often justified in her underdogness, where she was underestimated in the workroom or, talked down to by the cast. She would later then excel or even win in the challenges during the competition, especially towards the middle and latter half of the seasons. Number 2, Alaska Talks, the pack, the clique, they were all friends prior to filming this season. Alaska, Roxy, and Detox were all good friends and had prior relationships established before coming to film season 5, and because of that, their workroom dynamics felt a lot more authentic. There was a real sense of these were the in-group, Jinx was the out-group. It created a real sense of authentic relationship dynamics happening on screen, playing out, especially in moments of conflict. And number 3, at top 4, when Jinx was in the bottom during the ball challenge for the first time in the competition, she sent Detox home in a lip sync. And this creates a very compelling moment in the overline story of the season where fans are on the edge of their seats wondering, is this the moment where she has her do or die moment? Is she going to become the inevitable robbed queen of the season, or is she going to have her hero's journey moment where she slays the dragon? And she slays the dragon here. By the time we saw the first major fight in Untucked between the cast of Global All-Stars Season 1, all of the girls, outside of a couple prior established relationships, had all really known each other for about, 6 days. Nilenia really only had one win to justify her underdog storyline. She never had an opportunity to be in the bottom and physically triumph over her competitors, having a slay the dragon moment, and she didn't snatch the crown in the end. This is just weak storytelling. If the producers wanted to set up a more compelling narrative for the underdog storyline, there should be more instances of her having positive critiques or triumphing with a challenge win in instances where she was being underestimated by her detractors.
Okay, editor's note here. I'm just popping in to say I am very aware that Nilenia was often positively critiqued throughout the season. And she was definitely underestimated quite a bit in the confessionals, at least. But I think what I'm trying to get at here is I would have liked to see more narrative synergy between challenge placements and moments of conflict and discussion. For example, I'm thinking of, the girl groups challenge where she had this massive moment in Untucked where she could have been, rewarded by giving a great TV moment and being underestimated by the cast with a challenge win instead of Kitty Scott Claus. Or in the cocktail to dress challenge where, she has a major breakdown in the workroom and a big conflict with Kitty Scott Claus, even if I think it would have been kind of rigged considering she made a very safe garment, I think it would have been nice to see her get a win here as well. So the point I'm trying to get at here is maybe not necessarily that, she didn't do well and that she wasn't constantly critiqued positively, but just I would have liked to see her, have some more narrative synergy between placements and moments of having conflict with the cast, That's just what I'm getting at here.
Nilenia versus the World really only lasted about a handful of episodes in the grand scheme of the larger, messy storytelling of the season. There are only 2 fights in Untucked. First, in episode 4, when she tells the girls, after doing very well in the Girl Groups Challenge, I feel underestimated by a lot of you, and that puts everyone on the defensive. The second time is during episode 9, when after she's just about to win the makeover challenge, Queen Kong seemingly comes in out of nowhere and just curb stomps her with some of the most kind of out of pocket critiques, which I don't really disagree with in the moment, but it definitely doesn't come off as, charitable or nice, and there is additional context to this, but of course the editors don't add that into the overall story. And at the start of every single one of these episodes following a major fight in Untucked, Queen Kong sits down with the rest of the cast, directly apologizes to Nelania, and explains her perspective as to where she is coming from and why she said what she said. And they move on. That's a level of maturity that villains on Drag Race don't often show. In the episodes in between these two major fights, typically Kitty Scott Claus ends up becoming the shady narrator this season, whereas Queen Kong is more confrontational. In the confessionals, you have Kitty Scott Claus making comments about, particularly Nelania, her performance, her emotions, her feelings, her reactions, and this is done obviously to set these two queens up as her biggest adversaries. But really, outside of the cocktail dress challenge and the two previously mentioned episodes, the rival really doesn't take up a bunch of screen time? Like, it's not a huge part of the season? Fans of the show would have you believe that every single episode of this goddamn season was an attempt to systemically break the psyche of Nelania, and that this whole entire cast is full of hateful bitches who should all be disqualified. In reality, it was 2 5-minute fights in Untucked, a workroom conflict, and a handful of shady confessionals. And this, of course, did not stop any of these terminally online chuckle fucks from being very annoying about it all season long. On the one hand, you have a majority of the Drag Race fandom in Queen Kong and Kitty Scott Claus's DMs, comment sections, accusing them of being bullies and acting unprofessional, which is like, Diva, they're on a reality TV competition. They're paid to be cunts. Like, dare I say, this is probably the most professional thing they could do. And of course, during a lot of the backlash, a lot of people in their comment sections just happen to love bringing up both Queen and Kitty's body sizes. I wonder why. And on the flip side of all this, you have defenders or agnostics calling Nelania a crybaby and annoying. There was even a clip from a podcast that went pretty viral on Twitter. Of course, I'm not going to mention the host or the podcast itself, but there was a clip that went viral in which the host had the audacity to say Nelania actually deserved to be bullied? Jesus Christ, man. I'll give credit where credit's due. At least he had the balls, if not also the stupidity, to show his face and say that nasty shit with his chest on camera. You know, unlike the rest of the Drag Race fandom, who likes to hide behind anime avatars and stan profile pictures of their favorite drag queens. Love that for them. By the end of the season, I completely understand why everyone was just done talking about it and didn't want to bring it up ever again. The negativity was exhausting to just see on the timeline. Stan culture on the internet has made practically discussing anything incredibly insufferable. Like, every little action or word or opinion or thought, regardless of how light or mild the take is treated like the end of the fucking world or a violation of the Geneva Conventions. Like, the Drag Race fandom spice tolerance is the equivalent of thinking salt and pepper is spicy. These bitches beg for flavor every single year, and when they do get spice, they can't handle the heat, so they default to unseasoned chicken, and that's how we end up with seasons of television where half of the cast is trying to censor themselves and not bring out their real personalities or have authentic connections or conflict because they're afraid of getting doxxed or dogpiled or treated like shit by weirdos on the internet. It's gross. And the worst part about all of this, of course, is that the cast are the real victims in this scenario. Nelania has spoken up numerous times during and since the season not to send hate or vitriol to other cast members, and even explaining that post-filming, her and Kitty Scott Claus are actually close. They don't dislike each other at all. And Queen Kong, since filming, has also tried to share additional context as to explaining where she was coming from and why these fights happened and what was left on the cutting room floor during filming. But of course, producers don't care about that. No, what matters more is haphazardly putting together storylines in an attempt to create viral moments and generate buzz. And to be clear, I'm not saying that this is particularly a bad thing. This is the purpose of reality television and reality TV competitions. The cast knows what they're signing up for. However, there has to be more done on the work of production and the crew to shield their workers from harm. Their workers. Their cast is their workers from harm when fan vitriol is going just too far. Because at the end of the day, it is a job for these girls. It is gig work, a gig that a lot of them are going barely above broke for, just to pay for a runway package that will probably not get shown in its full entirety, in the hopes of attempting to expand a platform so that their drag and their art can reach more audiences and they can do more to climb the social ladder. This has always been one of my biggest critiques of Drag Race as a whole and reality television in general. There needs to be more done to protect your workers, your cast, from fan abuse. It would be so nice to see Ru or Michelle or World of Wonder issue a statement whenever fan vitriol gets just way out of control, saying something along the lines of, hey, I love this queen, please treat them with respect, or this is a reality TV show, it's fabricated, it's highly produced, it's not that serious, please don't make any harmful or disrespectful comments towards these people, that is not welcome in this space. I feel like that could go a long way with a lot of the fans who just take the shit way too seriously. But no, instead, we just get discourse. Mindless, mean, overproduced, bullshit discourse over and over and over again about the same topics without actually having any sense of growth or awareness of the real impact that it has on the real people behind these reality television personas. And meanwhile, these talented artists' exposure and finances and bookings are largely dependent not just on how far they go on the show, but fan response. This, to me, is just not a sustainable working model. The fandom's priorities are always so fucked. Instead of advocating for better working conditions or post-show benefits for the cast members, they are so focused on taking low-hanging fruit far too seriously without actually discussing or blatantly ignoring the political messaging of shows like Drag Race. And the worst part is they're often internalizing it. Drama is usually not that deep. Politics are always that deep. To be honest, I could share my take on this whole feud and who I thought was in the right or what was the correct opinion here, but at the end of the day, I'm just not gonna do that because there's no point. It's just mindless chatter because I'm psychoanalyzing people that I don't know. I wasn't in the room, you weren't in the room, we didn't get to see what happened, we don't know what their interpersonal dynamics have been since the show, and sending vitriol or abuse to people for winning a challenge or produce drama or sending your favorite home or making a shady comment about your favorite is just completely unacceptable. Kitty, Queen, Alyssa, Soa, Nelania, any of them, any of this cast. And yes, I firmly believe that we should be shaming that behavior because it's just not normal. And unless one of these cast members has done something egregiously terrible, like doing a fascist salute on live television or committing assault, it is just not worth your time. So log off, touch grass, and grow the fuck up. I just want to reiterate here that my intention has never been and will continue to not be dredging up negativity about this season. I cannot imagine what it must have been like for the cast to get brought on for such an exciting opportunity to show off your drag in front of one of the most impressive, famous drag artists in the entire world, only for the fan reception to be overwhelmingly negative. And I really cannot emphasize this enough. I want there to be another season of Global All-Stars because we deserve to have a platform where people can learn from and experience drag and queerness and queer and trans art from all manner of different cultural perspectives, regardless of how neoliberal or flat the production makes it seem. So, in the interest of trying to leave things off on a positive note and advocating for better, here is what I think should happen to have an improved, better Global All-Stars Season 2.
All right, good morning, Kingdom. Good morning, Jarivers. So I lost the footage for this section, so you're getting all of my suggestions for Global All-Stars Season 2 podcast style. If you haven't already and you've made this far into the video, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe, follow me on socials, and join us on Twitch if you haven't already. But I just want to say thank you for being here. Let's just jump into this, divas. Firstly, I want to see more diversity in judging. I think if you're going to bring in a cast of artists from around the world, your judging panel should reflect that. Majority of the guest judges on this season were from English-speaking franchises. We had Ross Matthews, Graham Norton, Carson Kressley, T.S. Madison. You know, just like mix it up a little bit. I want to see like, you know, just a little bit more. Mix it up a little. If they want to keep Ru and Michelle to be like the mainstays of this judging panel, that's fine, but let's have other perspectives on drag as well. Global All-Stars should also include different hosts as guest judges, in my opinion. It's high time that production acts as this unspoken rule where RuPaul can be the only drag queen on the judging panel. I would love to see her interact with Barbie Breakout, Supreme Deluxe, Drag Queen, Tyga Brava, Brooklyn Heights, you know, even throw Raven in there for fuck's sake. Like, build solidarity amongst those who host the franchises. Personally though, Global All-Stars should be hosted by someone who has already watched every single international season of Drag Race. So, my dream host for Global All-Stars Season 2 is not RuPaul, but Angeria Paris Van Michaels. I mean, think about it. She's funny, she's charismatic, she's kind, she's oomph. She has experience on the show, but most importantly, she is a fan of capital D drag outside of the States. I have not seen an alumni of the show be this passionate about drag, capital D-R-A-G drag, since full government name Alaska Thunder 5000. Plus, she's a winner. That should be rewarded. At the bare minimum, can we at least get a season of like the pit stop and have her host, you cowards? Ah! In terms of casting, I do think the whole like one queen per country rule is excellent. Like, no notes. I also think picking a cast full of mostly runner-ups and finalists or fan favorites is also excellent. However, I need production to be very careful about who they pick for their US representative going forward. Alyssa Edwards came into Global All-Stars Season 1 with an insane advantage, not only being very financially privileged, but being a legacy artist and alumni of the show compared to the rest of her castmates. And I get it. One of the biggest draws for series like Versus the World and Global All-Stars are the returning United States queens. However, pick a queen who has like a sizable platform, but not like a legacy platform, you know? Pick a finalist from a more recent season, not someone like fucking Detox, you know? Not a legacy artist. I would love to see, personally, production cast a fan favorite or finalist from a more recent season that hasn't gotten their shot at All-Stars yet. Like, think about like Crystal Method, Lux Noir London, Rosé or Lady Camden. Saphira Crystal is like the definition of like the perfect Global All-Stars pick. I personally would have loved it to see her get the crown for season 16, and I think at this point, like, she is too big for All-Stars at this point in her career, but seeing her go back for like Global All-Stars would be fantastic. Like, that would be a great, All-Stars run for her. So, you know, that's my picks though. That's my thoughts on casting. Give your cast a stipend and a spending limit. All-Stars 9 was kind of a dog shit season for me, but one thing I really think they did right was giving their cast a stipend for their runway package. I think production should take financial resources into account and provide a stipend of, say, 25 to 50k and a spending limit of 100k. No more, no less. Michelle Visage told Eva La Queen when she was in the bottom for the acting challenge, she critiqued her runway by saying, "I want to see global drag. This is not global drag to me." And I think that's such like a bullshit critique because it's not just vague, it's also a kind of classist. Like, what does that even mean? Every outfit on that stage is going to look cheap compared to shit like this, and this, and that. A spending limit and a stipend will help even the odds, while also giving your cast the ability to have access to more designers and fully realize their visions for different runway categories, especially when you cast girls from countries with less financial resources. no more going broke for a gamble like Drag Race. Like, WoW is a multi-million-dollar company. Surely they could afford to pay their workers more. As much as I enjoyed seeing girls from around the world compete, if you're going to demand a language requirement of your cast, you should do the bare minimum to try and meet them in the middle. It's totally fine to sprinkle in some comedy challenges here and there, but skills like choreography, design, lip sync performance, music, and singing are far more accessible to a wider range of cultures. This gives your queens from non-English speaking countries a greater chance of succeeding, considering the 3 times an ESL competitor won on this season was during a design or performance challenge. Set your cast up for success. Be more conscious of the language barrier. And yes, this also does apply to Versus the World seasons too. In addition to the competition, I also think that if you're going to create a season as grand of scope as Global All-Stars, there needs to be more done to promote it. For instance, challenges like a roast or a talent show should have a live studio audience. There should be a live finale. All of the queens should be present for press week, and it should be aired live on MTV or on cable in the States. No more of this bullshit dropping the season at 3 a.m. on Friday on Paramount Plus. That does your cast and your fans a massive disservice, especially for a series that should be this big. Caveat, I am not aware of how work visas function for everyone outside of the States, and I do understand that WoW filmed Global All-Stars at their studio in Colombia, so if anyone has any further insight into this, I'd love to hear it. But still, I feel like there's a way we can find some middle ground here. For example, like, do press week themed like around a girls trip in Colombia. Americans who love tourism would eat that shit up. And you'd also feature the local culture and give a little boost to the local economy. It's a win-win for everyone. Okay, this is kind of like a weird one, and I totally get like the necessity of having sponsors to help pay for stuff on Drag Race. Partnering with Absolute Vodka was essential to helping get Drag Race off the ground in its Logo TV era. However, I could not help but notice that this time around, how egregiously off topic some of these brands were. Like, the gay dating app I can kind of understand, but why was Canva a sponsor? Fucking Canva? Really? And all of this emphasis on coffee during the roast episode, like, was there a shadow sponsor that really wanted to throw coffee beans at gay people in wigs? I think one of like the most important things to like building brand integrity and world building of, you know, say a pop artist or a television show is like the companies that you are tied with and like the brands you work with. For instance, when you think of Taylor Swift, you think of Capital One. When you think of Jamie Lee Curtis, you think of Activia, not Activia the drag queen. Stan Activia though, we love her. Chappell Roan just did a big sponsorship with Sephora, and like, I couldn't think of a better partner for her because she's literally a drag queen. When I think of Drag Race, I think of Absolute Vodka, Wigs and Grace, Amped Accessories, Anastasia Beverly Hills Cosmetics, Coffee, Canva, Generative AI, NAR, 9, maybe not. It's small, but shit like that really takes me out of the illusion of Drag Race. Again, I get that Drag Race is kind of in its like Target Pride Collection era TM, but I would hope that going forward in future seasons of Global All-Stars, production works with brands and companies that like make sense to the ethos of Drag Race. Honestly, the producers like were given very easy, narratively satisfying storylines to be followed all season long, and even by doing so, given the format that they chose for this competition, the way they structured and sequenced all of the challenges, they still probably would have ended up with the exact same top 4 and winner. However, the journey to get there would have been a lot more narratively satisfying and interesting if they had just listened and paid attention to the cast and what was being offered to them on a silver platter. For example, Galavaro and Dana Paula had a prior established relationship to Global All-Star Season 1 because she had previously judged Gala, And her winning the talent show on episode 2 instead of Vanity Vane would have been a lot more narratively satisfying because of that prior established relationship. Or, Nelania winning the girl group challenge instead of Kitty Scott Claus because of what happened in Untucked. Or Pythia winning the Snatch Game because she chose to change her character and arguably got the best critiques of anyone during the entire season. Like, even if all of those story beats were still followed based on the way the competition was structured and certain queens' different lip sync abilities, we probably still would have ended up with the same top 4. So again, note to the editors going forward, listen to your cast and work with them instead of just forcing this entire predetermined top 4 on them. Again, we can still end up with the same outcome, but still have very interesting, narratively satisfying storylines to go along with it, The best seasons of Drag Race are ones with compelling stories told through the competition. Placements should be given out with a balance of both narrative in and out of the workroom and performance. And I think producers of Drag Race are often so focused on one or the other aspect of that they're not actually paying attention to how we get there and what that conveys to the audience.
I love drag. Drag artistry at its core is the lifeblood of the queer community. So many times throughout history of both trans and queer liberation movements, it was drag artists, the queens, the kings, the things, the monsters, the goddesses. It was these people who are on the front lines, often advocating the loudest through art, performance, and activism for the dignities of the marginalized. RuPaul's Drag Race is an extension of that legacy. Its very existence is a testament to the strength, power, and resilience of our queer elders who spent decades upon decades fighting for further visibility of queer and trans art and stories, especially in mainstream media. Like the fact that we have a show this popular that gets to platform on a global stage, both the main show, All-Stars, international iterations, and global All-Stars, the fact that this show is as popular as it is, the fact that we get to see queer and trans stories, queer and trans art, the fact that we get to see this around the world is such a massive win. Sure, the reality TV aspect of it is fun. I love getting to see gay and trans people be messy, but at the end of the day, a lot of us come every week to support the art, to support the queer people behind this program. I speak so passionately about Drag Race because I love drag, because drag as an art form is sacred. And I want to see the cast, both on and off the show, thrive. Even if their art is not something that always resonates with me, I still want every single one of these cast members, regardless of which franchise they're coming from, to be successful. And I also want fans of the show and fans of capital D drag to be honored and respected. I want there to be a symbiotic relationship between production, the cast, and its audience. So what do about Global All-Stars, a show that should be a celebration of drag and queer artistry around the world? First and foremost, support your working cast. Provide them with ample compensation and opportunities with resources to take care of themselves during and after filming, such as, paying for therapy and providing them stipends to pay for their runways, as well as adequate marketing and platforming to give these queens around the world opportunities to thrive financially and showcase their art to more audiences, so that way they can thrive. One of the best, and if not most underrated things to come out of this season of Drag Race is the fact that a lot of the cast members left filming becoming incredibly close, and seeing those friendships and continued stories of love, joy, fraternity, and artistry and collaboration is something that deserves to be continued to be hyped up and celebrated. Producers need to do more to protect their cast and uplift them, and fans need to be more respectful of the artists that work so hard to create entertaining television and beautiful visual art for them to enjoy and consume. This ties into my second concluding point, which is a piece of advice for fans of the show who tend to take things a bit too seriously. And I get it. I also get pissed off when my favorite is snubbed of a win, or is in the middle of drama, or, gets sent home unfairly. I understand that. However, there is time and place, And if you feel yourself getting a bit too heated over something that, again, really does not have much bearing on your personal life outside of the show, if you are finding yourself having a very visceral reaction to the show, regardless of what is being shown on TV, I have 4 simple steps that can help you from getting all Twitter fingers about this whole thing. Step 1 is pause. Hit the stop button and give yourself a minute to just like sit with your feelings. Step 2, breathe. Take 30 seconds to a minute to just calm down, do some elevator breathing, some 4-count breathing, and just breathe through your emotions and soothe your body. Step 3 is reflect. Take a minute to process and talk through your feelings with either a close friend or a group chat of individuals that also enjoy the show, and process and talk through your feelings in a way that is, or at least vent your feelings out in a way that is both productive, or at least not in a private space, to where the point where if you're feeling some type of negative way and have the need to say something hateful online, you just have a space that can just exist in peace and not be so put out in the public to the point where not only it reflects negatively on your character, but it also can be seen by castmates that might take it poorly and will affect their mental health negatively. Normalize the idea of having an inside thought. Step 4, resume. After you've spent some time cooling down and sitting with your feelings, talking them out, being all vitriolic about it, resume the piece of media, don't get all Twitter fingers about it, and just move on. It's not worth your time. Again, 4 simple steps to keep you in check while you're watching Drag Race. Pause, breathe, reflect, resume. At the end of the day, RuPaul's Drag Race, and by extension, all reality television competitions, are highly produced, full of real people playing up characters to a camera. Very real people that, I cannot emphasize this enough, very real people that neither you or I know. And I totally understand why this happens, because a lot of fans of Drag Race are from marginalized communities or are incredibly online and socially isolated. And in a world where, you know, white supremacist, heteropatriarchal capitalism, and I mean every single word I say in that sentence, white supremacist, heteropatriarchal capitalism, in a world where that force dominates everything and it feels like the world is run full of terrible, shitty people, it can feel like punching up when your favorite on a reality TV competition is being dogged down by someone and you want to go and defend them. I understand it can feel like punching up, but it's not. Because unless you genuinely know this person and have a real interpersonal relationship with them, be they your colleague, your friend, your roommate, or even your partner, it's just not worth getting all worked up over. There's greater things to worry about. Billionaires are literally running the planet, driving our taxes up. This is not worth it. Something I like to tell folks when we talk about Drag Race on my Twitch, twitch.tv/thatarchiemerc, I like to tell folks, critique performance, not character. It is completely fair to say something along the lines of, I don't like this runway, I think it's ugly. Fair, whatever. Art and fashion are subjective. Your tastes are your own. It is not okay to proceed to then body shame the person and accuse them of being on Ozempic. Gross. That's gross. Don't be that person. If all else fails, and you still feel the need to be a hateful bitch when watching Drag Race, take all of that negative energy, crumple it up into a little paper ball, and instead of chucking it at the cast or your least favorite queen, take it, crumble it in your hands, and throw it at the nearest Republican. It is not that hard to find out which conservatives are representing you in your city, your state, your province, your government, etc. It is not that hard to find out who are the people in power that are actively trying to make your life worse. Get mad about class inequality, and then we'll talk Drag Race, okay? And my third and final concluding point is, I cannot stress this enough, keep petitioning for a second season of Global All-Stars. I know that it is a tried and true thing for every first season of an All-Stars franchise to be kind of dog shit. But still, get up there in the comments section and let those money-hungry, greedy bastards at MTV and Paramount Plus and World of Wonder know that you want to see more of this show. We need to continue and fight to have queer and trans people be visible. Fascism is no longer just on the rise around the world. It is here, in power, on our doorstep. There is no more ignoring it. We cannot continue to be silent, and we cannot continue to just lie down while people in power steamroll and continue to erase our visibility. Stories of the marginalized matter now more than ever. In a day and age where small, insectoid, pathetic little men continue to cling to power and throw our communities under the bus for profit, for ego, for personal gain, we deserve, in spite of all of that, to be seen. We deserve to survive. We deserve to thrive. By all accounts, Global All-Stars Season 1 was a failure. It failed its audience and its working artists. Drag Race, as a franchise, often does fail its fans and working artists, but it doesn't always have to. We, as a collective, have so much more power than we realize to advocate for a better platform by and for us. I know we can. Because, and to quote the great Brooklyn Heights, the world has never needed the magic of drag more.